I was 14 the first time I ever saw a disabled professional. I was at a conference with my mom, and she thought I would enjoy some of the presentations. And one of the presentations was on disability. Someone was talking about a book that they wrote, and I was super excited. And so the first person came in, the author, and they were a visibly disabled person. And I was just so excited to see someone who was visibly disabled and I knew was disabled talking about disability. And then all of a sudden, another person came in, and then another person, and all of a sudden all of these people around us were people who were talking about their own experiences with the disability, both visible and invisible, and it just blew my mind. I was born in 1998, 8 years after the Americans with Disability Act was passed. Some of my earliest friends were people with disabilities because I was diagnosed by two. I'd been sick my entire life. I went to camps like MDA camp. I made friends with kids who had lots of different types of disabilities. It wasn't the disability that astonished me. It was the disabled adults living and working and breathing and talking about families and talking about having all of these things that I didn't know was possible. I grew up desperately trying to find any piece of media or a book or movie or TV show, or I look through YouTube and I try to find people with critical health conditions, and I did to some point, and I tried to find these stories that reflected me and my friends and gave me answers on like how to do school and how to make life work and how do you talk to people about your disability and what does it even mean to be disabled and how do you be a good member of the community and what does this all mean and how does it work, and just feeling so overwhelmed and alone. And it's not that I was alone in my community, because I had plenty of community members around me, but we were all kind of in the same boat. It really wasn't until college that I started putting all the pieces together and reading books like Disability Visibility and learning about our history and finding out just how much disabled people have had to demand for our rights, but also meant that I thought or been taught, I don't even know where I got this idea that like we always had non-disabled people do our battles for us, but it has always been disabled people who have fought first, who said the first thing, and what autonomy means, and all of these lessons that are so valuable to who I am today. That's why I started this channel, and that's also why I wanted to spend today's video talking about why I call this channel Disabled Constellation. And just kind of introduce you to me. I have quite a few new subscribers. Welcome to our channel. If you're new here, this is the first video that you're watching. My name's Issa, and I'm a disabled writer and advocate getting my PhD in communication studies with a focus in disability resilience and resistance. So, a little bit about me is I have unspecified mitochondrial disease. Every 5 to 10 years, somebody goes, I think I might be able to get that specific diagnosis, and maybe it's not mitochondrial disease at all, and maybe it's this, and maybe it's that, and then eventually they're like, this just kind of fits the mito thing, and it works as a diagnosis, and we just have to wait for medical advancements to catch up with you, which, okay, but basically what that means is that the powerhouse to my cells, the mitochondria, don't work all the time. And kind of similar to a phone battery, different phone batteries will shut off different apps first. Like if things is just like you're sending a text and like, why is my typing not working? And it's because your phone's about to die, or like things start being weird. That's basically how mito works. So it can affect a lot of things in your body. Mitochondria are in every cell except the red blood cells, which is a lot. It means that I am a wheelchair user, I have chronic pain, I have blood sugar issues. These are my wheelchair covers. They were gifted from a friend. It's from a company called Izzy Wheels. They're absolutely beautiful, and I just put them up, and I'm very excited about my nice new wheelchair. Well, the last couple of years of my life has been the first time since I was like 2 that I haven't been on medication. I don't have a feeding tube. I don't have anything extra. I'm just a wheelchair user. And that is the way it is for now. We don't know if it is the way that it's going to be forever, but that's where I am today. If you are looking for someone to share their medical journey, that's not really what this channel is. It's not what I do. I actually get really anxious sharing anything about my medical stuff specifically on social media, just because people can be really horrible. But I instead do talk a lot about disability history, what it means to be disabled, answering a lot of the questions that I had growing up. and at different key moments in my life and different lessons that I think are important for newly disabled or young disabled people. And I hope that through my videos that I can help at least give some language to the experiences that people are going through or bring insight. For the most part, sometimes I'll do a video that's aimed towards non-disabled individuals, but for the most part, I do aim a lot of my content for people with disabilities to better understand disability history and advocacy, and be better able to kind of have language to express their experiences and kind of think of the nuances of the words that we use. So let's get to the big question. Why disabled constellation? Well, two reasons. One is that disability is made up of several tiny little components that make up something bigger when you see it in totality. We've got the embodied experience of disability, the way that we experience chronic pain or mental illness, or a physical difference, that we experience it a little bit differently than the world, or maybe a lot differently depending on how you view things. And we also have our relationship with society and other people and the way that people view us as disabled members of the world and having to navigate areas of stigma. The second bit is that disability is very individualized, that each of us experience disability in our own very unique ways, and that together we make up a bigger story. And that's kind of what I was talking about a little bit at the end there with our community, is that community is such a big part of that. And that the grand disability story is made up of my story, and it's made up of my sister's story, and it's made up of my mom when she experienced a temporary element of disability. It's made up of my neighbor or my random school kid that I pass by and the person that I don't like at some function that I go to. But all of our experiences inform the greater story of disability, and we all interact with the world, and it's collective. It just makes something bigger than ourselves, and I like that idea. But all of these things don't really, like when you look up the sky and you see stars, well, first of all, it's hard to see stars if you live in the city. And you look up the sky and you see maybe like one or two stars if you're lucky. But if you know what to look for, you can start seeing the trends and you can start seeing the constellations. And if you know the constellations, then you know what the story is. And that just connects you to more people. For me, my disability shapes the way that I view community, the people that I love, the people that I've learned from, both non-disabled and disabled. It has shaped the passion and the career that I've gone into, because I study disability resilience and resistance because I want to feed back into the community that raised me. I want to understand how we are constantly, battling things and how we overcome, and how the world has failed us, and things that we can do collectively to make things better for one another. And that's why I do what I do in my research. Disability identity is wrapped up in the stories that I read and how I read stories, because I can spot a disabled character a mile away, even when no one else reads them as disabled. And yeah, maybe some of that is self-indulgent, but is that really a problem? My disability and my disabled identity interact because of my body, because the way people view me, because of my wheelchair, and the way that I interact with the world, and that I look at space and I think about energy usage, and I think about time, and I think about heat, and I think about all of these other components and trying to make things work. And I also can see my friends who are struggling with something, and that's health, and that's scary, and we have to go to the ER or something like that. And all of that, my personal experience and my embodied experience of disability helps me, they all feed into one another, and they help me become a better person for my friends. So to sum all of this down is that I think that people can look at the individual elements of my life and make up their own stories, and that people do. I think that they regularly take these individual pieces of my life and don't really see the collection. They don't see the connections, and they don't have the tools to do that all the time, and that's okay. And sometimes it's not okay. Sometimes it's a little bit makes me uncomfortable, but that's just the way it is when you have elements of disability that are visible. But I don't believe that my story and my experiences are individual. I think they're deeply connected to other people. And the way for us to know these stories and know the connections and understand the meaning and the power and the background of all of it is to start learning how to read the stars. And I'm not an expert by any means. I feel like I'm still very much I'm middle of the road of I've got some things figured out, but I'm still figuring out a lot. And I want in this channel to teach you how to read the stars, teach you how to learn to appreciate other people in the community, how to appreciate your own story, how to appreciate the way that we collectively come together and make something bigger than ourselves, that's grander and more beautiful and that's fantastic, that's complex, that's filled with pain and joy and every human experience. Most of all, I want to share my experience and the complex, ugly, beautiful, magical truth of it all because I think there is something to learn. And I hope that I leave something behind to make life just a little bit easier and answer a couple more questions for any kid out there who's desperately looking for YouTube, for anyone who has slightly an idea of how to answer some of their questions. So if that seems like you, or if you seem like you want to join on this journey and be part of this community, please like and subscribe. If you're new here, welcome. I'm so excited to have you. What are some things that you want to explore more? I have a series that's Disability 101 that I'm working on that's going over some basic like intro to disability ideas. Next week is going to be about ableism, and then I'm also working on a video about wheelchair users and like basic like intro information on how to be supportive of wheelchair users in your life. But what else? I have higher education experience. I have lots of opinions. Always ask me an opinion. But otherwise, have a wonderful week, guys. Thank you for listening to Ramble today. And I hope that you take a moment to read the stars tonight. Bye.